These are potimarron, and they're sort of small pumpkin, sort of a squashy type thing. And what I do is just chunk that, and then take the seeds, separate those out. Don't wash them. Auntie Mary and Gary and Deanna says not to wash the seeds. You just put them on a baking tray, clean all the muck off without washing them, and spread them out on a baking tray and bake them just for 10 minutes or so. To that, I'm going to add some nutmeg, cinnamon, and brown sugar, cook it up, and then blend it. This is my pumpkin pie mix. If you don't like pumpkin pie, if you want to do pumpkin soup instead, then just put the spices in that you would for a pumpkin soup. Or you can just leave it plain, and then that way you've got options. So now I'm going to do some ratatouille. I've got some roughly chopped onion and garlic there. I'm going to fry that first and just sort of brown it a little bit in a bit of olive oil. And then I've got a mixture of tomato, pepper, aubergine and courgette. That's the type of courgette. Got to do something with these. So this is a good thing to can as well. Lasts, I don't know, a couple of years on the shelf. So it's just going to fry there. Stick a bit of salt on if you like salt. Or not if you don't use salt. Salt, I think, with canning things, salt and sugar just helps it to stay preserved a little bit longer, so I always add it. Got some little mirabelles here, so I'm going to pick those. My bigger purple plums aren't quite ready yet. So I've picked my mirabelles and I've given them a bit of a wash just to take all the bits off and any bird poo or whatever, things that you don't want in your finished product. I've just got a tiny bit of water in the bottom of there, not loads. And the reason I'm going to cook them, I mean, they will cook when they're in the jar as well, but when they're uncooked, then there's a bit of an air gap between the fruit, and then you end up with a jar that's at best half full. As the fruit cooks, it'll pack down, and then you end up with a half full jar, and that's no good to anybody. So I just cook them quickly first. Not loads, just enough to soften them so I can pack them in a little bit better. I haven't bothered taking the stems out of these, but you can. These are super sweet, they're dropping off the tree, so I'm not going to add any other sugar. Again, you can if you want. I mean, it's just, it's up to you really. So I'll leave that to cook a little bit, just to steam a bit with the lid on, and then I'll come back to it. So you can can meals as well. This is hot and sour soup, and these are just sort of red and green mixed tomatoes from the end of the season last year. This is tomato paste that I made last year. There's some little cherry tomatoes, some ratatouille and stuff like that. Okay, on to jar sizes. So you've got smaller than this actually. Oh, here they are. Teeny tiny ones. These are for pate usually. These ones are for like jams and jellies and things. You can get a rubber ring that goes on that, and then that seals in the same way. Then these are 350. These are half a litre. Then you've got litre jars, and then you've got some really big ones. Do I have any really big ones down here? Let's do it. Oh, it's the biggest spider in the world through there. Whoa, stay there you. This is a 2 litre one. So we're just going to do just some, probably about, I think, half litre jars today. You need to wash your jars really well. Even if they're clean when they went down into the cellar, they're not clean now because they've been sitting in the dusty, horrible cellar. So I use these two things, just a little splash of bleach, just to get rid of any bogies, and peck or whatever your dishwashing detergent of choice. Wash them in really hot water and then rinse them to get the soap and the bleach off, and then ideally fill them up straight away while the jars are still hot. You can, if you want, sterilise them in the oven. You still need to wash them, but just to make sure that they're even more clean. Botulism is a real horrible thing, and it's best to avoid it if you can. So taste test everything. If you don't like it now, you're not going to like it when you open the the jar up in 6 months or whatever. So make sure it tastes good. That tastes fine. This is a little too sweet, but it's going to have eggs and cream in it when I go to make it into a pie, and it's only a tiny jar anyway. So this, I daubed a little bit on the side. This needs to be absolutely clean, so just get a bit of kitchen roll and just wipe that. So, just to make sure it's spotless. What helps with filling is one of these. It's a funnel with a huge mouth on the end, and you stick that in there, and then, let's see if I can do this. Well, just use your imagination if I can't. You know how it goes. Tip it in. No. Tip it in, and even though I'm getting it absolutely everywhere, it's it's just going to drop straight through without making a mess on the jar. There's a fill line, maximum fill line on here. Do not go over that, because as your mixture heats up, then it's going to expand a little bit, and if it gets up too far, if it goes towards this joint, it'll wreck your seal, and it might even blow your jar to pieces, so you don't want to have that. So you wash and dry your rings, and you put them on. Just, they've got to sit on really tight. There's a little, oops, pop that one off. There's a little rim there, and it's got to go underneath that rim. Once you've got that on, nice and tightly, you just do that, shut it, and put the thingy up, and then clip it down, and then that's good to go in the bath. These are all hot, which is going to help a lot. With your cooking time, it's going to be shorter because they're already hot, so you're not bringing the whole thing up to temperature. Otherwise, you've got to wait for the whole thing to boil, and if it's got to heat the filling up as well as the water and everything else, it's going to take forever. So hot is good. My actual canning pot has a metal insert that so that the jars don't actually touch the bottom. If there's too much heat on the jars, then especially if you've got cold filling and everything and cold water, then there's too much of a heat difference and the jars can crack. So you don't want that. So with these, if I'm just doing small scale, stick an old tea towel in there. That'll do, just so as it's not directly on the bottom. And then pack your jars in. I'm only doing a tiny amount. Now, don't be tempted to put them in like that, because what's going to happen is the water boils, one of them will fall over, or maybe both, and what's going to happen then, the filling will block the seal and the air won't be able to escape, and the whole thing will just explode, and you'll have fruit everywhere, you'll have broken glass, and it's a mess. So if you didn't have a third one, don't they look nice, Mirabelles, I would just put an empty jar in there or something, just to stop those, just to block them in and just to stop them from potentially falling over, and then we're good to go. So cover it with water to above the top of the jars and set it boiling. The water's not boiling yet, but you can just see the air bubbles escaping from around the seal. That's great. That's all started, so we'll leave it, because it's already cooked and hot. I'm going to do these for probably about 30 minutes, 30, 40 if I lose track of time, and then we'll come back to it. I was going to turn these off, but they're still bubbling quite a bit, so I'm going to leave them in for a bit longer. So when it's time to take them out of the water, you use this tool. Ideally, you'd leave them in the water to cool down, but not everybody's got time. If you're canning a lot, then you need to use your pot again for the next batch. Then you have to take them out and just put them on the side to cool down. So you get this little thingy and you grab it and you can lift it out like that. What I used to do was I used to use a fork, and one time instead of hooking it around the back like that and lifting it out, I hooked the fork round this bit, and it flipped up, and boiling hot ratatouille or whatever it was shot out and burned me on the arm. So that wasn't very nice. This is something that I did a while ago. This is tomato soup. It's separated out, actually, so you just give it a shake if you want to use it. And see, that is sealed proper, like you can't just open it easily. That I did last year, and it's still sealed perfectly fine. To open it, what you have to do is get a pair of pliers. Oh, hello, Misery. And then you pull this tab, and that just releases the pressure. So, but I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to eat tomato soup now. There you go. And that's it. That's it. Job done. They'll stay shelf stable for, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Anyway, happy canning.